Is estate planning something you've done, something you've delayed, or something you're just not sure you need? Keep listening to hear our take on estate planning. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Brittne Halford.
And I'm Dr. Lisha Taylor.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so that you can create the life you desire and have more control over your time.
Hey, Brittne, I don't know about you, but taxes are always a pain.
I know we always have to pay, but the amount of taxes we owe has decreased significantly after working with Alexis and her team at Cerebral Tax Advisors.
Cerebral Tax Advisors is more than just a company of CPAs. They're actually a company full of tax strategists that can help you keep more of your hard-earned money. They're effective communicators and can let you know when something needs to be done ahead of time and walk you through it so that it's done correctly.
What I love most is that they send mid and end of year tax reviews so that you're always prepared and can take strategic action throughout the year. Alexis and her team have saved me money, time, and peace of mind. You deserve to keep more of what you earn. Reach out to Cerebral Tax Advisors today at cerebraltaxadvisors.com. Hey, Lisha, one of the most important financial tasks we do as doctors is protect ourselves, which means getting the right insurance. I recall purchasing my insurance policy just a few days before I graduated from residency. What was your experience?
So I got my insurance when I graduated from medical school right before I started residency. I actually called a few agents, but I had the best service from Pradeep Auto at PKA Insurance Group. He was super responsive and personable. Unlike some of the other agents, Pradeep actually got me quotes from all the major companies and actually took the time to explain the nuances in each of their policies. What I loved most is that he wasn't just this way for me. Whenever I would send one of my friends to him, he would not only speak to them, but he'd also let them know where to go or who to contact if there were better options or discounts available.
At PKA Insurance Group, Pradeep Auto and Matthew Peterson are independent brokers focusing on disability and life insurance. They excel in securing coverage for physicians and other medical professionals. Discounts on disability insurance can range from 10 to 40% depending on your situation. And there is now an A-plus rated carrier offering up to $10 million of life insurance without lapse. If you are very healthy with limited to no medical issues, approval is likely in 5 minutes. Reach out to PKA Insurance to discuss your disability or life insurance needs at www.pkainsurance.com or call 1-800-258-1018. All right, Lisha, over here with our new home purchase, the saga of the hot water heater continues. And honestly, I'm ready to wash my hands with it. Let me ask you what you would do. And this is a little bit of life is lifing mixed with a money confession. And so hear me out and give me a little bit of grace because I made a mistake. All right. So we had this hot water heater issue. We have a handy guy who comes and really helps us out to fix most things in our house. He has been with our family for 5 years. Our landlord, when we first moved here, used this guy and he's been trustworthy. Like I've even had him in my home when I have not been present. He's always given us the real and been very transparent if he's able to fix something or if he's unable to fix it. And at times when he's not available or unable to fix it, he has even sent a guy to help us out. We've always had just a great outcome with him. So when we got into this whole hot water heater issue, he looked at it and couldn't figure it out. And he's like, okay, I'll send my guy. But then his guy wasn't responding to him. So he found another person and referred me to them. I think part of my money mistake is I did not ask enough questions about, oh, how did you meet this guy? What is your rapport with him? How much do you know about his work ethic and his quality of work when he made that recommendation? And so because this came from a trusted source, I didn't vet the company or do anything. They came over when I called them, but it was a little bit tricky because when they called me back, they called from like a hidden number. So I'm like, okay, I don't know. The guy sounded nice. He sent his family over and they are like, oh, it's an easy fix. It's only going to cost you $800. We got to replace this pump. We got to replace this pipe. I don't know why this thing is broken. We're going to update this thing. I don't know anything about electricity or plumbing. I see the symptom that we don't have hot water. This thing is leaking. And I guess I had enough trust that even though that symptom was still present when they left, that the explanation that he offered of why I'm still seeing the linking is that there's condensation and it's going to be cleared out of the system now that they've done this workaround thing, that I had faith that that was true. So I did the things that they told me to do. And then that evening, the problem still persisted. But prior to that, whenever you are paying for a plumber or a part of their contract, they had a part that says the work is done to your satisfaction. And I signed that, but it was not. But I had questioned him about like why it was still happening. He's like, oh yeah, you just got to let it air out, in a couple of hours, whatever, it'll be cool, it'll stop. So I signed that. So I go back to the company and I talked about this in another episode about how they quoted me like $3,000 more than other companies. So I tried to get my money back and this guy basically has ghosted me. And my mom's like, oh, well, I can call and we can take him to small claims court. But honestly, I'm like, is $850 worth my peace? And my mom's also asking me, well, why did you sign this thing when it wasn't satisfactory? I'm like, well, it was referred by this person and he gave me an explanation. It's kind of like, in my mind, this is what I thought. When patients have pneumonia, we're treating with antibiotics, but they're not done healing yet, right? The bacteria and the virus is not completely gone, that the cough is going to resolve over time, even though I'm discharging you. So that's kind of what was in my mind. But now in hindsight, you can't use the same benefit of the doubt that we give doctors and how patients work with their symptoms to your plumbing issues, right? It's not the same. It's not an apples to apples comparison. So I paid $850. I didn't do my due diligence to vet the company, nor I should have not accepted that the explanation was going to be an accurate explanation. And now is trying to figure out how much effort do I put into pursuing a refund of the money.
First of all, I'm sorry this happened. That sounds frustrating. Besides not having hot water, which is big problem number one, trying to solve the issue, trusting a source, that source recommending somebody, and then them essentially not doing their job and you giving that person the benefit of the doubt, I can understand that that might be frustrating. I'm letting you know that I would also too be frustrated and upset. You know me, I'm upset when the airport parking goes up $5. So I can only imagine $850. Like, what? I got to work a whole shift once you factor in taxes and all that stuff, right? So I get your frustration. I understand where your mom's coming from. Sometimes I'm sort of like your mom, where I'm like, okay, this is not okay. And if I don't pursue this, this person may get away with this again. So I need to make sure that this person knows that this is not okay. So I'm going to put all my effort into making sure that they know that's not okay. But then other times I'm like, it's a lot of effort involved. And at some point, you just got to count your losses. Now, $850 to me is a lot more significant than probably $850 to you. So I'm not sure that if I were you, I would small claims court it, whatever. I think if I were you, I would direct my energy into actually making sure that the hot water pump or heater, whatever thing gets fixed. And I think that on one of our previous episodes, you mentioned you were quoted like 11 grand. Does it really cost 11 grand to fix this freaking hot water heater?
So this company quoted us 11 grand. And then after they didn't fix it, I didn't really like the customer service. I went and got quotes from other companies. And he told me, after kind of going back with him, that he would match the price and deduct the $850 for them to replace it. He would match the price of another company. But for me, and thinking about the operations is, one, how am I going to have faith that they have the qualifications to fix it right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because they did not before.
Yeah.
And I did not like the guy who came to the home. He was not a friendly person and he did not have like a people's personality, which is fine if you have the skill set. I understand not every person is a people's person. But in the case that the hot water heater was to break again and they insure their work for a year, do I actually want to have to deal with this company or this person again?
Yeah.
That answer was no. And so because I felt a little bit duped, I felt that they did not have the qualifications to tell me and diagnose it accurately the first time, and I didn't like the person, I think it's worth paying somebody else who I feel has the capacity and will be able to interact with me in a positive way that I don't feel like I need to go somewhere else. And do I really want to give this person another 7 grand when they already tried to rob me of 3,000 more than what every other company was charging? So because of all of those reasons and not wanting to deal with them, we went with another company. And I'm very happy that we went with this other company. And I'm really sad that I didn't call them first, but now I know who to call first.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I certainly would not do anything with this company anymore. Like what the person who came and told me it was going to be fixed essentially lied, or maybe they just didn't realize it wasn't going to be fixed. I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt. But the problem is that he's not responsive. So now I'm going back to the same company and you're promising me you're going to send somebody else. And I don't really know if I trust your company because clearly your employees are not super responsive or personable or whatever. So I agree with you. I wouldn't go back to the same company. Sounds like they were overcharging you by multiple thousands of dollars. Like that's unacceptable. So I'm glad you went with a different company. But is everything fixed? Are you still bathing in cold water? Or what's happening?
No, it's fixed. It's fixed now. It's fixed now. We're not boiling water anymore. It is fixed.
Yay.
Yeah. So part of me is like, okay, I don't have to deal with this anymore. I don't have to deal with a company anymore. Let me just protect my peace and wash my hands with it. And this is not a business expense, but because we do have a home office for our business, I'm just going to incorporate this into the itemized list for all of the home expenses that now I can have the deduction of whatever the square footage is of the office. So I'm trying to logically reconcile some of my losses here, but my mother, she's like, it's the morality of it. They swindled you, and we don't want anyone else to be swindled. And I feel very selfish saying, like, I really don't care about anybody else right now. I got to protect my peace. But what I told her I was going to do is do my due diligence to put on reviews like on Yahoo or Google reviews to say and share my negative experience and just kind of wash my hands with it. Because if we were to go to small claims court, I just don't want that stress right now. And I think it's just going to also add another to do item for me that causes me more tension. And my therapist just told me I needed to relax a little bit more. So that's why I'm like, should I just let it go? $850 is not small change, but in the grand scheme of things, for the time and the energy, I think it's worth just letting it go.
Yeah, I agree with you. I probably would make the same decision, but I'm very glad that you have warm water and that you're able to get things fixed. All right, in terms on my end, I have been doing a lot of speaking. It's so funny. My friends are like, Lisha, you're never in town. And I think between like me traveling for leisure, sometimes vacation, the Olympics, things like that, but I also travel a lot for conferences. And sometimes my friends are like, are you just going to like hang out? Or are you going to a conference to learn? Or are you going to the conference to speak? And so between those three things, me going to learn, me going to speak, and me traveling for leisure, I just been gone a lot. And I am trying to make a conscientious decision to not travel so much. September's probably going to be busy again for me, but maybe in October and like the rest of the year, I can do a little less travel. But I'm mentioning this because I've been invited to speak. As most of y'all know, I love teaching doctors about personal finance, whether it's investing, retirement accounts, taxes, that kind of thing. I absolutely love doing it. It brings me so much joy, but sometimes it's exhausting. And so I'm trying to balance it and find ways where maybe instead of doing small group settings where I'm speaking to larger audiences so that I'm able to impact more people with one talk, doing maybe a few more talks via Zoom so that I'm not having to travel so much. And I've been struggling with this. And Brittany, maybe you can help me out with this. Is charging more. And it's not, I'm trying to get rich out here doing that. You know, my desire to teach and speak to physicians is really genuine and I love doing it. But just especially when I'm going in person, it's so exhausting. I have to sometimes take off work or use like CME days or whatever for my job. And then there's the time it takes to actually fly to the destination, check into the hotel, speak at the event, which normally always goes over for me. Partly it's my own fault, but I like to answer everybody's questions. I like for it to be interactive. And so that just takes longer and it's more exhausting. And then I finish the talk, I'm coming home and I'm tired. And then I've got to like catch my flight. And there's also the opportunity costs because I am faculty at an institution. I do work part-time into urgent care. And so there's the missed compensation that I could have got if I just worked a shift and stayed in town. So I think I'm gonna have to start charging a little bit more. I don't know, but I'm trying to balance like doing something that I genuinely love that brings me so much joy that I want to do more of and just doing it in a more feasible way. So I don't know if you have any tips because I know you speak a lot at conferences and stuff.
I hear you. It's tiring. It's also exhilarating, like being on stage, being in front of
Yeah.
people. You know, one of the things that I've just thought about, and I think what might be helpful is just understanding some of the other benefits. Yes, there might be a monetary gain from that, but what are some of the other things that bring you value and joy? And so you mentioned that it does bring you joy, but kind of anchoring on those, trying to find ways to protect your energy and re energize. So when I'm at conferences, sometimes I feel guilty about this even when I'm presenting. Sometimes I don't even attend all of the conference and I just go back or go shopping at the new place or go for a run or whatever the case may be
Yeah.
and use that as an opportunity. I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking for more if you think that the monetary compensation will make it less draining and more fulfilling and rewarding for you. And
Mhm.
then another thing that really helps me is to know that this is an opportunity not only for me to get paid for a service, but also for me to connect and network for the next opportunity. They kind of build on each other and just think that there might be somebody in the audience there. Of course, they don't know how much you were paid for that presentation, but who invites you to speak for another presentation. And then you can increase your rates and figure out how to protect yourself and protect your energy so that it makes it worthwhile. Maybe that's them doing the schedule of the flights and the hotels and all of that for you. I know you want to get the points, but, but maybe some benefits of just taking the load off. So all you have to do is focus on you showing up, being present, and doing your thing, and not have to think about all of the other logistical pieces.
That's good advice. Thanks for that. You're right. One of the things that I could do is maybe not try to go to so many of the conference sessions. I think I try to do that because I'm like, oh, I'm here. This topic sounds cool. This topic sounds cool. And I've like run myself ragged because I've flown in, prepared my own talk, how to deal with that exhaustion, and then trying to listen to other talks instead of resting appropriately. So that's definitely something that I could do. I've tried to think of ways to scale it. And I think that's where you and I come in with our upgrade program, where we have our financial curriculum that we do for GME programs and healthcare systems. That I think is really awesome because we get to impact hundreds, not thousands of residents or physicians at one time. And so that's really cool because it's like one talk and then so many people have heard it and been able to ask questions instead of doing so many mini talks. So that's rewarding. So finding ways to scale it, I think, like you said, maybe not going to every single conference event, remembering that it builds on each other. Yeah, but it's definitely something, it's crazy because it's tiring, but it's something I want to do more of. Like I genuinely love teaching, especially when it comes to finance. And I think that I'm good at it at this point. People keep asking me to speak, so that's usually a good sign. So I'm trying to find ways to do more of it. And you know what? If I'm being honest, it's one of the reasons that I took the job that I have. Is my current job, I don't see patients clinically like 5 days a week. I only see patients clinically like half of the week. And the other half of the week, I do work from home, but I can do some of that work at different times of the day. So it allows me to be more flexible with my schedule so that if I am invited to speak somewhere, I
Mhm.
can travel and do some other things during the day and just do my other work later in the evening. I think that's me talking to myself about how maybe I need to stay put in my current job and recognize the benefits that I do have and the flexibility that I currently have. So, yeah, trying to find ways to balance things. And I might cut back in medicine. I know that sounds strange coming from me, but I'm still full time. So I think that eventually I could see myself in a few years, like maybe cutting back a little bit so that I'm not responsible for professional athletes and students and residents and my own patients so much time during the week. So anyway, I am trying to figure that stuff out. But hopefully I can find happy balance.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure you'll figure it all out.
As physicians, one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we secure our income because a lot of our financial plans are contingent on our high doctor income. One of the things that you will need to do is make sure that you get long-term disability insurance.
Now, Pradeep and his team at PKA Insurance Group have a reputation for putting people over profits and always doing what's best. Do not hesitate to email PKA Insurance and his team today.
They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
All right. So now we are going to talk about something that is really important to me, and that is estate planning. Lisha, I had a conversation with my stepfather at one point about some of the properties that his parents have and how they're managing things. And he's like, oh, yeah, my dad just put my name on the property. And I talked to my mother in law, and it was the same. She was like, yeah, I just put all my kids' names on it. And I think traditionally, that's one of the ways that we've kind of passed down wealth, especially home ownership, is just putting the name on it. But then I educated myself and I'm like, it seems like there might be a better way to do this. So we're going to have a conversation about estate planning today. Lisha, do you want to open us up? Like, what is estate planning and why do you think it's important?
Yeah, so this is going to be one of those instances where it's like, do as I say, don't do as I do. Because full disclosure, I haven't actually set up my estate planning stuff yet. Part of it is that I'm not married and I don't have children. And to me, I don't yet have significant assets. And so a part of it was like, maybe this is something that I should wait until I have more assets or until I have children to sort of set up. But I realized that other people may have a different take and that there may be some benefits that I'm just not thinking of or that I haven't prioritized, should I say, in terms of this. But in general, estate planning is making a plan about how you want your estate to be handled once you pass away. And your estate sort of encompasses your children, your asset, and your money. And so, where do you want your money to go when you pass away? Where do you want your assets, so the things that you own, whether it's a car or a home or a fancy jacket or a Chanel bag, where do you want those things to go when you pass away? And what do you want to happen to your children or any dependent that you take care of? And so, estate planning sort of puts that stuff in order so that things can go to whoever you want them to go to in the smoothest, most efficient, most private way possible.
Yeah. Thank you for that introduction. And I'm so happy that you were transparent with us about what's going on. We laugh, but really, honestly, that's what I love about this podcast is that we're open. We are humble and we know that we make mistakes and we may know something, but doing it is so different. And honestly, we just got our estate in order last year. And if I'm being humble, open, and transparent, then there's still a few things that I need to switch over. And so the trust is not fully funded. For the most part, it is funded, but it's not fully funded yet because there's that one lingering account that I need to move over. I think you raised a really good point of oftentimes we might delay doing this because we may not see the importance because of how much we own and what we perceive as a net worth worth protecting. When I looked at some data, there's a survey of consumer finance that releases data every 3 years or so. And data from 2022 shows that the average net worth of a US family is about 1.06, so about 1.1 million. But we know that an average is not the best metric to use because it is very susceptible to outliers, right? So we're not the Bill Gates of the world. And we know that there's like huge discrepancy in net worth. So we take the median. So a median is a more representative measure, and that's about 193,000. So, Lisha, if you think about your assets, having that metric as like a median comparison, then I would argue that you do have something to protect. And I would also argue that even before we get to having this quote unquote protectable net worth or assets to protect, there are still other things that you can define and outline in your estate planning that will help you while you're living and upon your death. Because as a hospitalist, I see people die often, unfortunately, in the hospital. And I also see a lot of disability where people are incapacitated and now that burden falls upon their parents or their family members to take care of them, regardless of their age and regardless of their previous functioning. So when that happens, it's so much of a cognitive load and emotional load for the family to not only deal with this change of health or this death that is unexpected and have to try to figure out the estate. So I would say that whoever we are, whatever we have, there's probably some elements of estate planning that you can start to put in place even today.
No, you're right. And I'm glad that you carved out median versus average because that's a huge difference.
Hmm.
Most times, for a lot of things, the median is so close to the average that we don't really think that much about it. But the fact that the average net worth is 1.06 million, the median is 193,000, that's so large. Like, goodness gracious, I guess all the millionaires and billionaires are skewing the numbers. I also want to say, I think that this net worth includes the value of someone's home in this calculation, if I'm not mistaken. And so when you think about it, when people consider their home value, a lot of people's homes are worth multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. The fact that the median is only 193,000 actually seems a little low to me. I guess I was expecting it to be a little bit higher because that number includes people's home value. And so that's telling me a few things. Maybe people still have large mortgages, so they may not own their homes free and clear just yet, or that there are a lot of people who are struggling. There are a lot of people who maybe haven't had the opportunity, haven't worked in jobs that allow them to save and invest as much. And so as high earning professionals, we tend to make a lot more. And so we can have that leg up and hopefully be able to build a larger net worth. I will say, and we'll get into this because we're probably going to do a part two, right, where we talk about do's and don'ts and we talk to a lawyer and all of that stuff. But for this episode today, I did want to make it clear that there are some aspects of estate planning I have done. I just haven't filed the official documents. And so when we do that part two, we'll talk about sort of what things should maybe go in an estate or into a trust and which things may not. But I do remember when I started my current job and I set up my work retirement accounts, putting in beneficiaries. Like if I were to pass away, who do I want to get the money in my retirement account? And since I am not married, I put 25% to my mama, 25% to my daddy, and 25% to each of my brothers. And that may change depending on if I like them or not. But for right now, I'm giving them a good bit of money. When I set up my investment accounts at Fidelity, they also asked me about beneficiaries and put some money in there. I don't want to tell my family exactly how much I put in there because they might use it to their advantage. But I did put some of those things in place. And so I want to say this. If you are like me, where maybe you are not married and you don't have children, or you want an easy first step to do, maybe you can start there with just naming some beneficiaries on your retirement accounts or in your investment accounts so that at least your people can be taken care of that way. But that brings me to the next thing. Brittne, can you help us understand what are the different components in an estate plan? When we talk about estate planning, what do you consider to be a part of that? What should we be doing?
Yes. So the first thing to think about is a will. And I think we all think about, okay, want to have some type of written legal document that specifies who your assets go to upon your death. So if you have your grandmother's wedding ring and she outlined that in her will, then that allows for you to define who some of the nuanced, valuable things, at least to you, go to. Not only just the money or the house, but some of your other belongings. It also allows you to name the guardians to minor children. And for me, that's where I'm like, I need to do this sooner than later because God forbid that my husband and I would go on a trip and something would happen, then I did not want our children to end up in the system, which I know, we have enough family to support us, to support them, to get them out of the system. But then also for my family to have any disagreements about who's going to care for them or how they're going to be cared for. So our will helps us and helps my family to know exactly what we want them to do and exactly how we would want them to be raised. In addition to a will, I think many of us have also heard about trusts. And trusts are legal entities that hold the assets on behalf of beneficiaries. So there are so many different types of trust, but you can have a revocable trust that can be changed or an irrevocable trust that cannot be changed. Right now, we have a revocable trust, but for tax purposes, there might come a time in which we would want to put some of our assets in an irrevocable trust. This helps us to avoid probate. And also, you hinted at this privacy. We hear about all the time celebrities passing away and how people know about how much they have because they do not have their estate plans in order. Other things to include are power of attorneys. These are the legal documents that allow someone to have authority over the trust and to manage your affairs if you become incapacitated. So this is what I'm saying. Like, as a hospitalist, I see this all the time where people don't have their stuff in order and then families don't have the power of attorney. They can't get access to their assets. So you can have financial and a medical power of attorney. And then the last thing that I would say to include in this, and there are a few more, but would be a healthcare directive, which is in the case you were to get sick, what do you want your family to do? And this is where I think even as medical professionals, we don't have this in order. I know that for sure because I was in our hospitalist office and I dealt with this very difficult case. And I literally went and got like a healthcare proxy form. Now, this is a bit different than the directive, but a healthcare proxy form. And I asked my colleagues, I said, do you have your healthcare proxy form filed? Everybody said no. I said, do you have a healthcare directive or a living will? Everybody said no. We do this every single day, and no one in this office has the documentation of what we want. And it just shows, I think, that how much we live in the present and we don't think about how this could also occur for us.
You know what? I'm going to push back on this just a tad, because you're talking about people like me. And so I feel very called out right now. And what's interesting, I had this assignment in medical school to fill out a healthcare directive. And our assignment was take this form to somebody in your family, probably one of your parents, and have the experience of filling this out. And I will tell you that I called my dad because we're super close. And I said, Dad, I got to do this thing for medical school. I got to fill out this form. I got to ask you some questions. He goes, okay, fine, whatever. I started asking him the questions. And he admitted, he said, this makes me so uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't that he thought he was going to live forever. It wasn't that he only lives in the present. is that the idea of thinking about his death was so uncomfortable that he hadn't filled out the forms.
Mhm.
And so me asking him these questions was sort of the first time that he'd really thought about some of this stuff. And I remember him asking me questions and saying, well, I wonder what your mother would think, or I wonder about this, or I guess maybe I don't want this. And so I would venture to say, Brittany, that it's not that we haven't thought about it, it's that it's uncomfortable to think about. It's one of those things. It's like paying for insurance, right? You're paying for something you hope you never have to use, designating and filling out all these forms. You hope that you're never in a position where you're incapacitated and somebody has to make decisions on your behalf. But I would venture to say it's uncomfortable. I will also venture to say that although this is helpful as physicians, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you actually work in the hospital and I'm more so in the clinic, this is a hot take. I'm not super convinced. So please convince me if I'm really wrong here that the healthcare directive is super important. The reason being is that when I did work in the hospital, I can't remember one time pulling in someone's healthcare directive. Not a single time. Not when I was in the ICU, not when I was on the med surge floor or whatever. You know what I did? I called the nearest family member and I said, what do you think they would want? And I think that 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. It's not that doctors are on the phone saying, I'm sorry, I need your healthcare directive. It's if the person's married, we go to the spouse, right? They're not married, we go to their children or their parents, right? Depending on the age. And we say, what do you think this person would want? And so that's actually what I encourage people to do is like, yes, having this form, I guess, is helpful because then you know that you've had a discussion, but it's really tell your family what you want. And oftentimes, I guess the form does allow you to ask these questions, but it's like one of those things where, like, I don't need my dad to have 20 different copies of this form. I just need him to tell me what he wants. And then when the doctor's office calls me, or if the doctor's office calls me or whatever, then I can say, oh, my dad wanted this. We talked about that. And that's actually what I think is more important is a conversation with your family about what you want to happen.
I agree. I agree with your sentiment that this is a challenging conversation. And what you said about your dad, that also happened when I had this conversation with my mom. Our church really pushes that we get our affairs in order. And so these are at least quarterly. We have meetings that we can go to that helps us to think about this, to process this, to write it down, and to share it with our family. And they are uncomfortable conversations. And my mother also said, I could do this another day. Like, why is it so ominous? I don't want to think about death. For me, it's really important that we have these conversations for a couple of reasons. From a healthcare directive perspective, it's important because even if I call Dr. Lisha Taylor because your dad is ill, you have an opinion. But then, as a healthcare provider, your brother is at the bedside and he's like, oh, hold on. No, why are you doing this? Like, my dad, no, we're not going to do that. And so, what I see too often is that the first thing that came to mind was an expletive hits the fan,
Yes.
right? Logically, we know what conversations we've had with our family, but emotionally, what we don't want is to lose our loved one. And so that conversation of, I don't want to be on life support, I don't want to live like this, turns into, no, I'm not going to let my dad die. I'm not making that decision. Do everything possible. And what I've also seen is that there's tension between siblings or the decision makers because it's not just one, because it hasn't been clearly defined. I've also seen that there's some documentation and then the family reverses it and said, "Oh, when they did this, this was," and so that is very challenging for me as a hospitalist because now I have to get ethics and legal involved, especially when I don't see that there's going to be any medical gains or benefits. It is complicated. It is definitely complicated, but I think that having a conversation, documenting it, allows you to put your best efforts to provide your family mental ease and ensure to the best of your ability that things go as you desire.
I hear you. I hear you. I will also say I was thinking about this recently because one of my closest friends started doing her estate planning. She's not in medicine. She's like a healthcare consultant. So adjacent to medicine, but is not a physician or a healthcare provider. And she called me and she said, hey, Lisha. I was like, hey, girl. And she goes, I'm filling out my estate planning documents and have a question to ask you. I said, what? And she said, you are the doctor that I trust. I love you. And I said, well, I'm great. And she goes, because I trust you and I've known you for so long, I wanted to ask if you would be one of the medical healthcare powers of attorneys for me. And I said, really? I was like, we're close, but are we that close? Like, what? And she goes, well, I really want it to be like, I think her sister. But she was like, but I don't trust that my sister will really understand all of the options. She may just be so emotional. And since you're a doctor and you've worked in it, I feel like you would be the best person that could really communicate with the physicians and really explain things to my family in a way that they could understand. So I was wondering if you could do this for me. And I,
Mhm.
of course, said yes. I was like, yeah, of course, girl, I got you. No worries. Hope nothing happens. But if it does, I got you. And she's like, okay, I'm going to put your name on this form. I got to have you sign it. I got to have you do this stuff. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But it did make me think about a few things. One, have I thought about that for myself and for my family? And it really made me think about, man, maybe I need to start organizing all of these different things. And so I guess to your point, the process of filling out these documents can really help to have a conversation, and it may not be, oh, I don't feel confident that my family knows my wishes. It may just be, maybe I want to ask someone ahead of time who could help my family facilitate these conversations and facilitate all of these things. And so that is, I guess, something to support your point in that maybe these things can be helpful.
Yeah, it's heavy laden and everybody's emotional. So I think just having that person who can be as logical as possible to help. And they say, well, this is what Lisha, and here's it's written. It's a legal document. This is what Lisha told me to do. I'm just following what Lisha told me. Then they could get mad at you instead of your friend. Mhm.
Exactly, exactly. When I used to think of estate planning, right, I would think of a living will. Where do I want things to go? And I said before, because I don't have children, because I'm not married, because I don't have what I consider to be substantial assets outside of investment accounts and cash, I haven't really done the living will part. I don't have a trust fund because I don't have assets to put into like if I were to pass on retirement account stuff, I would just name the beneficiaries. We talked about how financial power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney could be helpful. But I also want to mention two other things that I think are really critical in estate planning that I think often get missed or forgotten about. And one is a letter to family, and two is a solid place for all your important documents. And I think that these are the two factors of estate planning that anybody in any stage in life, whether you're married or not married, whether you have kids or not, dependents or not, substantial assets or not, could benefit from. The letter to family, I think it cannot be stated enough how important that is. Writing a personal message to your family. This happens, we hear about this a lot when people who have cancer or have some terminal illness, they'll like record a video to their family or write letters to their family. But I think it's also helpful to just let your family know, like, hey, if I were to pass away, this is what I want to happen. Just like letting your family know and having it written down. Usually when people pass away, if there's some sort of letter, they tend to cherish that. And so what do you want those final words to your family to say? I know that can be hard to think about, but I do think that it is helpful. Letter to family, talking with family. People also put in this letter like what they want their funeral to be. They tell them things that maybe they haven't told them before. And so I think that's important. The other thing is important documents. I see all the time where families are in disarray when someone passes away. And it's the sadness, but it's also, how do I do this? This person has life insurance. Where's the policy? How much money is a life insurance company? When are they going to give it to me? This person had a lot of money in the bank account. How do they transfer that money to me? This person worked 10 different jobs because they change jobs every 3 years and they've got 5 different retirement accounts or whatever. How do I access those accounts? Most of that stuff is online and is password protected. Do you know those passwords? When you're talking about life insurance, usually they'll ask you for a birth certificate or death certificate. So where are those things located? If you are married, do you have a copy of your marriage certificate? If you have disability insurance, life insurance, other insurance, umbrella insurance, the deed to your home, title for your cars, like where are all of those documents? Most of us have them, but we may not have them in a centralized place. And so that's where I think a lot of us can start. Is that have we created some booklet with all of our financial information, whether that's online or not? And if it is online, then have we written down the password and are we keeping that up to date? Because a lot of us just say, oh, it's in my Google Drive or oh, it's in this. And it's like, okay, well, would your family be able to access that? And so some people will say it's best to just print out some of these things. And that's what might have like in a safety deposit box or whatever, where they say, okay, I'm going to have a centralized place where all of my stuff is printed. I have the beneficiary amounts. I have all of the different retirement accounts. I have the insurance policies. I have the birth certificates. I have the marriage certificates. I have the title to my home. I have the deeds, all of these things. And so I think gathering all of your important documents is a key part of estate planning. And it's something that I know that I need to do is to have everything in a centralized place.
Me too. Even going through the estate planning process, they make you get all the stuff together. And so I have everything in a trust, and my best friend and sister in law know they've signed the documents and they know the attorneys, and I've sent the emails. But if something were to happen to me and not happen to my husband first, I think he could be a little lost with some of the passwords and all of the things. It just makes me think that I need to share my last password with him. You raise a great point. I've heard similar conversations from colleagues that when their parents or one of their parents passed away and there was the other parent who wasn't typically involved in the management of the finances, that things were a mess. And they too say you need to put together an Excel spreadsheet or something that has everything listed down. And one of the things that you have to do is make sure that you update it, right? Because we change passwords all the time and all these, we add accounts, we change banks and all of that. So making sure that you kind of put this part of your financial to do list and do it at least annually. When we think about our funerals, that was something that our attorney helped me to think through and have a conversation with my husband about. It is really important. I think the estate planning, some of it you might be able to do yourself. But for me, I thought about what is the cost of what I'm doing if I do it incorrectly. And for me, we hired an estate attorney because I did not want to mess this thing up. If I'm amassing all this money and being a good steward of our finances and of my money decisions, I want to make sure that it's passed on in a most proper way so that it could benefit my family. And because I don't do this every day, I thought that there was a higher likelihood that I could make a mistake. And for me, that weighed on me emotionally because I tried to do it myself. And I'm like, I don't know about this. Let me hire somebody. And so when I hired her, she helped me to think through my funeral. Like, how much do I want to spend on a funeral? Do I want to be cremated or buried? And it was just really nice to have someone who does this on a regular basis to help me through the emotional side of things and kind of think about what I value to make sure that even upon death, my values are going to be honored. So typically, people in my family are buried. I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna spend all that money on a burial and a casket for me. Get me cremated and go to the beach and
What? You want us to burn you up?
yes,
Get
girl,
out of here. I
get
would
me
have.
cremated.
Are you
I
serious?
am
Hold on. Pause for a
serious.
second. I would have bet money I was gonna get you a nice little tombstone.
Oh,
What?
no,
How we
no.
gonna visit you?
Well, you could put a little
It's
bit of my ashes in a necklace or something. And what I tell my family is because I want my life, I want it to be a celebration. I don't know if it's necessarily because of where I'm from, being from Flint, Michigan, or some of just being a minority and some of the systemic racism, but I've lost too many family members too early. And on their birthdays, on Christmas, on Memorial Day, my family goes out and they put flowers on their graveyard. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I appreciate that they remember them, but it also brings so much sorrow. And I don't want my family to think about my life and for them to feel sorrow. I would like for them to celebrate. And so keeping me with them at all times is like, that's what it is. I'm a spirit now. You always have the memories. And so I don't want them to feel like they have to go to a place in order to connect with me, that they connect with me all the time. And I want them to celebrate my life and take a trip and just pour a little bit of champagne or wine down for me and drink up and just enjoy remembering my life.
Oh, I've learned something new about you. I have a personal question. What did your husband say when you
Mm.
told him you want to be cremated? Did he really want you to be buried? Was he surprised? Did he know this about you? Was he like, cremate me too? Like, what was the
He said, cremate me too.
wow?
Yes, yes, yeah. I don't know. All of his family, at least from my experience, we've been together for 13 years. And for the funerals, all of his family members have also been buried. But for me, it doesn't make financial sense. And honestly, like it just doesn't make sense. But
Okay.
but that's
I'm
that's for
just
me, you know?
no, I'm hearing you. I have a question. So, probably some people listening to this are like, okay, Leisha and Brittany, you guys are both physicians. Have you ever thought about donating your body to medicine or science? Has that ever crossed your mind?
It has. I am registered as a donor, an organ donor, but not donating my body to science. I mean, I appreciate going through anatomy. I can't even remember the guy's name now. I'm sorry, my cadaver, but it was a black man. I was very grateful that he donated his body and we learned anatomy. I think that there is definitely some benefits in doing that, but I just decided to donate my organs instead.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So you were talking about this process that you did not too long ago. And I know that you mentioned that you wanted to go to a lawyer because you wanted to make sure you didn't mess this up. Do you have any idea of like how much this would cost? Like how much it costs you if you don't mind sharing? And then how much it would cost someone maybe who's in my position, who's not married, doesn't have children, doesn't have a lot of assets versus someone who does have a lot of assets?
Yeah, you're right. So it varies based on state. You want to make sure that you have a state attorney who really knows what some of the estate law and tax limitations are within your state. So it varies based upon state and complexity of one's estate. So, like one's assets that you have. So, if you're single, no home, no children, fewer assets, then it's probably going to be closer to $500 if you live in a low cost of living state to like about $1,000, maybe $1,500 if you live in New York or Massachusetts. But if you're married, it's complicated. You have a lot of assets, you have businesses to put in trust and think about that. It could be upwards of around $8,000. And for us, we paid about $7,500. We got a will, a trust, healthcare directives, POA, and also a legacy plan. So our attorney sat down with us and helped us think about not only who do we want our kids to go to, but what does their education look like? What types of trips do we want them to have? Is there anything like athletics or any participation in certain type of extracurricular activities? Thereafter, how much would we give them for their first home? How much would we give them for undergraduate? How much would we give them for graduate school? And I found that that was really helpful because for me, even as logical as I can be, and definitely more of the do as I say and not as I do, I'm like, if we got it, then let's pay for their wedding and let's do this. You want to make sure that you're raising good stewards and responsible children. And so, really thinking about how you want that money to be managed was really helpful to have someone who does this on is their occupation when they are an expert in this field and could help me to think a little bit more logically about the decisions.
I love that. I love that in terms of thinking about not only who do I want to take care of my children, but what kind of life do I want my children to have? You brought up a good point. You remember earlier when I was talking about how one of the reasons why I haven't set up a trust yet is because I could just put beneficiaries on retirement accounts. It reminded me that one of the downsides of doing that, whether you put the beneficiaries on retirement accounts or life insurance policies, they get the money automatically, which can be very helpful if you're passing money to somebody who's an adult and who can manage it. When it comes to children, it's like, do you want your children, whether they're adult children at 18, if something happens to you, to get $500,000 in one lump sum? And for a lot of people, the answer is no. And so having a trust fund where you can stipulate, all right, they get this amount of money at this age, and then they get a certain extra amount of money at a different age so that you can encourage them to sort of be responsible and good stewards without just giving them everything at 21 or 18 years old. So the trust allows you to put those stipulations in place. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it also allows you to do other things like saying, okay, I'm going to allot $100,000 for their first home and their wedding and $50,000 for down payment on their home or whatever it is, and being able to put in extra stipulations of I want, not only do I want this person to get this amount of money, but I want this person to get this amount of money in this time period for these specific things. Or once they've done X, Y, and Z, then they can get this. And so I think setting up a trust allows you to put more things in place that might better align with your values and your desires. So that is one benefit of doing that. So now you've kind of made me think a little bit more about doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I think there are so many benefits to do it. Of course, whatever you establish today will need to be updated as you get more assets and as your life evolves. But it's that you're preparing based upon who you are and what you value and making sure that those wishes are carried out. Not saying that what's set in stone is what's set in stone. It allows for evolution. And that's the benefit of having a revocable trust so that you can modify it as you please when things change and evolve. And there's an assumption that the adult who's the beneficiary is going to be responsible. That's not always the case, unfortunately. I know there are many people who they have no one else and they just have the one child, but they're still concerned about that one child's stewardship. And the trust will allow you to define that they get a certain payout every month that they can use so that they don't just squander all of the money at once. So having that definition of how you want things, and it allows for you to really protect your family in that way. Like if you know this about your child, then you can protect them by not allowing them to misuse or mismanage. And so that's what I really love about it. And it incorporates your goals and who you are. And it, for me, was a very transformative experience just having these conversations with our families and actually updating my mom to say, we know that you're a grandmother and we've outlined in the will that you're always going to be part of our children's lives because you are very important. However, we want our children to be raised like this and at the age that you are. And we just don't know if you're going to have the capacity to do all the things that we want. So here's where our children are going, and here's what I want. Like my mother would have not wanted me to be cremated. And so it has been just really transformative to get everybody on the same page so that there's no familial tension and they know exactly what we want.
That's nice. Yeah, it's really interesting in terms of your family may want something different for you than you want for yourself. And so having that conversation with them ahead of time and making that plan ahead of time kind of gives everybody the heads up so that there's less strife
Mhm.
later. The other thing I want to say is that for a lot of us that are physicians who may work at academic institutions or large healthcare institutions, I actually think that there might be a way for us to get this done a lot cheaper. Oftentimes, some of these academic places will have like these law packages that you can, if you're faculty there or if you work full time there, you pay like $20 a month and it gives you access to lawyers who will then draft up a will, a power of attorney, a trust, all of that stuff on your behalf. And that's included in that package. And so I
Mhm.
think for a lot of us physicians, it can actually save us a substantial amount of money. And I don't think that physicians are the only profession that have this. This is my way of saying, anyone listening, check out the benefits package at your job. Most of us know about a retirement account and an HSA or an FSA or health insurance. But also look, because you may have these other sorts of ancillary benefits like this lawyer package available to you that will allow you to do this for substantially less money.
Yeah, they actually just added that benefit to our benefits package, of course, after I've done all of this thing. So, but for the updates or if we want to modify it or just to get another perspective, I can use that service. So thank you so much for mentioning that. All right. Well, Lisha, now it's time for our fun money segment. And I am actually very excited about this one for me on my end because I'm not actually spending money. I had mentioned, I think, in previous episodes that one of my money mistakes is not using gift cards before they expire. And because we purchased a new home, had to pack everything up, move everything, I found two gift cards from 2018, Lord Jesus, that I did not use, but they expired this year in 2024 at the end of the year this year. And it's like two gift certificates actually for a Swedish massage. And one of the things that my husband and I have been trying to do because our lives have gotten very busy and we haven't spent as much meaningful time together is to have more date nights on a consistent basis or day dates if need to for on the consistent basis. So our marriage therapist said, like we should go back to ping ponging who arranges the dates and makes all the details and the childcare arrangements and all of that. So I'm like, winning. I found the gift certificates. They're not expired. I could use them for a date night and I don't have to spend any money. So I was really like, I haven't scheduled it yet. I just found them actually today. And I asked my husband, I was like, what's your availability for the next 2 Saturdays? So I am very excited to not spend any money, but have a lot of fun.
I'm excited for you. I mean, you must have a lot on these gift cards because our massage is kind of expensive. You got enough where you and your husband can both get a nice massage. Wow. When I get gift cards, they're like $5 to Starbucks. It doesn't even cover the full price of the drink, but you seem to have a lot on yours.
Well, I think they just purchased the Swedish. It says it's 1 hour Swedish massage. So the thing is, when we're thinking about money, right? The gift cards at the time at which they were purchased and the value of things because of inflation, and we know how costs have
Ah.
risen. Because it actually doesn't have a dollar amount, it just says like a 1 hour Swedish massage, means that we could get the 1 hour Swedish massage. And I'm sure that the cost of the massage has risen over this past 6 years. So I'm really excited that it's not a specific dollar amount. It's just product or a service that is already defined.
Ah, okay, okay, okay. I was like, man, every time you talk about your friends and the gifts you get, I'm like, yeah, my life's different. All right, my fun money is okay. So you know how I was in Paris and I ate at this Michelin star restaurant. So when I was there, my friends and I tried a few different types of champagne. First, we ordered one glass of champagne, and then they really liked it, and the sommelier, which is a wine expert, was kind of talking about which kind of champagne would go with our full 7-course meal. So we got a bottle of this other kind of champagne. And then towards like the end courses, the chef, he wanted us to try like this other kind of champagne, or it was like a rosé sort of thing. And we loved it. It was great. And it was so good that I took a photo of the bottle and I ordered a couple bottles of the wine. And so that's one of the things I'm spending my money on is like just ordered a couple bottles of that wine. I'm not planning to drink it right now. I'm gonna keep one bottle for myself and probably give one bottle to either one of my friends or my brother and my sister-in-law because she just had a baby. So she's gone a long period of time without being able to drink wine. And I know that she loves really nice wine. So I might give them a bottle. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is like when I was in Paris, I love buying people souvenirs. And I've tried to, now that I make a little bit more money than I did in the past, avoid getting like little trinkets, which is like junk that people kind of throw away, and actually getting stuff that people would want. Problem with that is it's more expensive. And so I remember being in Paris, I had these cute little Parisian outfits with the little hat and everything for newborns. And one of my friends just had a baby. I mean, along with my sister-in-law just having a baby. And so I was like, oh my gosh, these outfits are so cute. They're probably only gonna wear them once before they grow out of it, but it is so cute that I could not get it. I was buying my parents a couple shirts and, like, my brothers some hats and things like that from Paris, and so that's something that I'm spending my money on I spent my money on souvenirs for family and then just ordered a couple bottles of wine that I'm hoping to give away.
Yay, that's so cool. And what I really love about the wine story is that it comes with a story,
Yeah.
right? So when you're having guests over and you're filling everybody's cup up, you get to share, oh, I got this wine from this place and kind of recount. And every time you do that, I'm sure you're just going to feel like all warm and fuzzy on the inside, recalling all the great time that you had in Paris. So that's really nice. And I'm glad that you purchased that specific wine because I know how much you like to drink wine. And now it's going to be coupled with a memory that's going to kind of reignite all of the joy that you created there.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Well, we want to say thank you for joining us on this episode. And please make sure that you rate and review the podcast. It helps others to find us. And we look forward to coming back to you in the next week. Bye bye.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittne Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisha Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, you know. So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.
One of the most important things you can do is ensure you have long-term disability insurance. Long-term disability insurance secures your income if the unexpected happens and you are unable to work due to medical illness, chronic conditions, or an accident.
Unfortunately, all insurance agents aren't created equal. Some of them are so focused on making a sale that they fail to reveal certain necessary information, tell you about discounts available, or clearly explain the process. Pradeep Bhatto and his team at PKA Insurance Group are different. They have a reputation of putting people over profits and always doing what's best.
If you need life insurance or disability insurance, reach out to Pradeep and his team today. They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.